DLSS 5 was just announced yesterday with planned release around fall of 2026, and it's already sparking massive debate. Is this actually the biggest leap in performance we've ever seen, or is it AI just straight up cheating now? Because we're not talking about upscaling anymore, we're talking about AI generating frames, predicting motion, and changing how games are rendered entirely. So I've put together everything we know so far, what's real, what's speculation, and what this could mean for flight sim, VR, and performance overall. And by the end of this video, you can decide for yourself. So let's get into it. One app designed to do it all. Hanger Control brings everything together: control bindings, hardware configuration, mod and profile management, application launching, add-ons, config files, and more, all managed from a single application. Mods Hanger goes beyond just mods and add-ons. It manages profiles, config files, text files, backups, snapshots, and helps keep your community folders clean and organized. Application Hanger launches your entire sim stack with a single click. Your Stream Decks are fully controlled through the Hanger Control plugin, while all of your other Stream Deck plugins remain active and available. Built by a simmer for simmers, Hanger Control adds new features and hardware support every week based on community feedback. It's a one-time purchase with lifetime updates, no subscriptions. You can try it for free for 5 days with no restrictions at overkillsimulations.com. Just create an account, head to your account page, download the latest version, and get started. And if you're looking for in-depth Microsoft Flight Simulator aircraft tutorials, check out my Patreon site. Links to Hanger Control and Patreon are down in the description below. Okay, so first, obviously, in order to get in any kind of debate, we need to know what something is. So what is DLSS? At its core, DLSS has always been around one thing: using AI. I'm going to say it one more time. DLSS has always been about one thing: using AI to reconstruct images at a higher resolution than what your GPU is actually rendering. DLSS 2, that was upscaling. 3 introduced frame generation. Now we have 5, at least based on everything we're seeing, is pushed even further into full AI assisted rendering. We're talking about more advanced frame generation, better reconstruction, and potentially even less reliance on traditional rendering altogether. And that's where things start to get interesting. So now let's talk about what actually matters to us, at least specific to this channel, being mostly based around flight simulation. Because this is where something like DLSS 5 could be a complete game changer. Flight sims are brutal on hardware. Massive draw distances, complex cockpits, insane CPU load. That's why we always seem limited by main thread, especially in Microsoft Flight Simulator. And typically, you are not GPU bound most of the time, as I just mentioned. That's the key. Because DLSS traditionally helps when you are GPU limited. But DLSS 5, if it continues pushing frame generation and AI reconstruction further, could allow you to see dramatically smoother performance even when the CPU is the struggle point. So imagine this. You're sitting at a handcrafted airport. Heavy traffic, glass cockpit. Normally, you're probably 35, 45 frames per second on the average machine. This is me coming from an RTX 5080 or a 4080. Okay, now the DLSS 5 could potentially present that as 80 to 100 and maybe even more frames per second. Not because your CPU suddenly got faster, but because AI is filling in the gaps. And for flight sim, that smoothness is everything. Now let's take that a step even further with VR. This is where things get really interesting and also a little complicated. VR demands high frame rates, not just for smoothness, but for comfort. Anyone who's ever seen a low FPS drop in VR knows it can literally make you feel it. You can get sick. DLSS 5 could be massive here, because if AI can generate additional frames reliably, you could maintain those higher refresh rates much more consistently. That means smoother head tracking, less stutter, and an overall more immersive experience. But VR is also extremely sensitive to latency and artifacts. If the AI guesses wrong or introduces delay, you're going to notice it immediately. So this is one of those areas where DLSS 5 could be either revolutionary or still need a lot more time to mature and potentially make things worse at the launch. In regard to overall performance expectations, this is where people need to stay grounded. Yes, you're going to see big FPS numbers. Yes, you're likely going to see claims of doubling or even higher, possibly tripling frame rates, much like we saw with NVIDIA's frame generation, 3, 4, 5 times, whatever it is, 6 times I think it is now in the latest series. But understand what that actually means. DLSS is not making your hardware magically faster. It's making your output smoother by generating or reconstructing frames. So your CPU bottleneck, still going to be there. Your simulation complexity, still going to be there. Your avionics load, still going to be there. DLSS is working around those limitations, not removing them. And that distinction is very important to keep at the forefront of your mind before you start getting too excited, or maybe not excited enough. So now let's talk about the hardware. So this is where it's really going to hit. DLSS features are tied heavily to NVIDIA hardware. Frame generation specifically, that's tied to newer architectures. So realistically, if DLSS 5 follows the same trend, you're looking at newer RTX cards being required to fully take advantage of it. High-end GPUs, strong tensor cores, modern architecture. If you're on older hardware, you might still get some benefits, but likely not going to get the full experience, again, if this follows the NVIDIA trend. CPU still matters. RAM still matters. Storage still matters. And especially for something like flight sim or VR, you're still going to want a balanced system. DLSS does not replace good hardware. It is merely enhancing it. All right. So now we get into the controversy. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. DLSS 5 is AI, and not everyone is happy about that. Some of the things I've been reading are quite impressive. You're already seeing the comments like AI is cheating, it's not real performance, it's fake frames. And look, I actually understand where some of these come from, because what DLSS is doing is not traditional rendering. Your GPU is no longer brute forcing every pixel on screen. Instead, it's predicting, reconstructing, and in some cases, outright generating frames using AI models. So yeah, technically, not every frame you're seeing is rendered the traditional way. But this has already been around for a while. We've been doing this, as I stated towards the beginning of the video. DLSS 2, DLSS 3, even TAA, which a lot of people don't realize, is doing the same thing. All of these are forms of reconstruction. DLSS 5 is just pushing that idea way, way further. So let's talk about some of the real concerns and not necessarily what I'm reading as a lot of the emotional ones. My first concern here is image accuracy. If AI generating frames, what happens when it goes wrong? If the fastest moving scenes, glass cockpits, small textures, or thin lines, yeah, artifacts are going to happen, and they're going to happen in a very noticeable way. And in flight simulation, that matters even more because we're not just playing a game, we're reading instruments, tracking precision, watching the tiny details. If DLSS starts hallucinating data, well, that's going to obviously be a problem for us. The second is input latency. Frame generation can increase perceived smoothness, but it does not reduce the time between your input and what actually happens. So you might see 120 frames per second, but your system might still feel like 50 or 60. And in VR, as we talked about previously, this becomes even more critical. So third, the philosophical argument. Some people just don't like the idea of fake frames, and I can respect that. It's okay. Wanting everything to be completely accurate and be right and have it just be raw, true data, that makes sense to me. If you want raw performance, raw rasterization, and no shortcuts, that's totally fair. But here's the flip side. If AI can give you a smoother motion, higher resolution, and better performance without you noticing the difference, does it really matter how the frame was made? that's sort of where I'm more leaning towards. Because at the end of the day, you're not benchmarking pixels, you're experiencing the simulation. Benchmarks are great, numbers are great, latency numbers are great, CPU threads counts are great, and frame per seconds are great. But that's not really what's making your experience. What you're wanting is how you are feeling while you are executing said experience. Flying, driving, hell, playing solitaire. Are you enjoying it? Is an experience something that you want to repeat? And that's where it really comes down to. DLSS 5 is not replacing rendering, it's augmenting it. The question isn't, is it fake? The question is, does it look good and does it feel right? Because if the answer is yes, this is definitely the future. So here's the bottom line of where I'm at. DLSS 5 has the potential to completely change how we think about performance, especially in flight simulation and VR. It's not magic, and it's not going to be a silver bullet. And it's definitely going to come with some trade-offs. We've already seen it with previous releases. Again, going back to NVIDIA's big boast with the 50 series of multi-frame generation, for those who turned it up to 4 and 6, yes, you got great FPS, but the image looked like absolute crap. So, something to be thinking about there. It's definitely going to have its trade-offs. But the real question is going to be how well it's implemented and how well it holds up in the scenarios that actually matter to us. Because if it can deliver, this could be one of the biggest shifts we've seen in years, especially at a time where hardware is extremely expensive to get a hold of. Let's think about the other sides of these coins here. I challenge you guys right now to go on Amazon and price a single stick of 32 gig RAM, which 32 gigs, let's be real, is becoming the new standard. Yes, you can buy PCs and things with 16 gigs, and yes, you might be able to get by, but I can tell you right now, if you try to push Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 on 16 gigs of RAMs at high graphics settings, you're going to struggle and you're going to see some major performance issues that are going to upset you. So when things are costing what they're costing, even if we do or are put in a position where we're forced to get the new series of graphics card in order to maintain this or use this new DLSS 5 to its full potential, and the only reason why I say that is because it lines up on when we might see a 60 series launch or 6000 series launch, then it might be worth it. It really just all depends on what kind of longevity this is going to bring us, and we really won't know until it's finally released or at least given into a beta where we're able to touch it. And that's the final point that I will leave you all with, is to remind you that at this moment, there is no public beta. There is no public release that we can use for testing as of yet. But here at overkillsimulations.com, we will be watching this very, very closely. And as soon as we have the ability to, I will definitely be testing it, because it has absolutely piqued my interest. And whether you're pro-AI, anti-AI, it is very, very important to remember that if you have used DLSS in any fashion, you have been using AI rendering. Keep that in mind, folks, and as always, stay safe and healthy. Let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll see you in the next one.